Welcome once again to this self-knowledge course. Today we will talk about a very interesting topic titled, Mechanical Creatures. In this topic we are going to understand why we are mechanical creatures, and how to get out of that mechanicalness in which we find ourselves, which keeps us always reacting in the same way to the different circumstances of life, which has led us to create and maintain many bad habits, and that does not allow us to awaken our conscience. This topic is very important, because as long as we remain mechanical creatures, acting under the mechanical programming of our ego, we will not be able to awaken consciousness. Let's start by studying what a mechanical creature is, and why we are said to be mechanical creatures. A mechanical creature is a machine that is not aware of itself, but is managed by someone who controls it, or programs it, to act in this or that way. In the same way, if we observe ourselves on any given day in our lives, we can realize how we are mechanically repeating the same actions, the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same inner states. And we can see how we always react in the same way under the same circumstances, constantly and repetitively, moved by the programming, or the orders, that our eyes, or psychological defects, give us. Each of our psychological defects constantly manifest through our energy centers. They drive our human machine and dictate to us what to do and how to react. And we, as simple unconscious machines, as simple puppets of our ego, go and react according to programming. For example, every morning when we wake up, the programming of laziness and anger is activated. And it leads us to feel upset because the alarm goes off, because we don't want to get up yet. Mechanically, following the programming of our own laziness, we snooze the alarm and then, repeatedly, we have the same conflicts, the same rushes, the same delays, the same arguments, etc. Every weekend or every holiday, for example, we feel sad. The programming of our self of loneliness leads us to become depressed, to look for sad movies, or to remember that person we lost. Or every weekend the ego that has programmed us is the spender, or the alcoholic, or the party animal, or the one who seeks to remain hypnotized by watching series or movies, and we constantly repeat that programming. Each of our psychological defects has programmed us to react to any circumstance unconsciously. Our lust has programmed us to react lasciviously to any image or situation of a sexual nature, or to an attractive or semi-naked person. Our greed has programmed us to act with fear when faced with the possibility of lack of money, and to react with desire when faced with the possibility of getting money in some easy way, even if it is not honestly. And what can we say about anger, or pride? We are so programmed by these defects that if someone offends us or criticizes us, we immediately react with violence or fear. If we are praised or applauded, we are mechanically happy, and if we are criticized or despised, we are mechanically offended or sad. Anger leads us to react to any situation with impatience, intolerance, tyranny, etc. And the worst thing is that we don't realize that we go through life like machines, without the slightest self-control, reacting to various situations in a mechanical and repetitive way, at the orders of our ego, without even being aware of it. We believe ourselves autonomous, we believe ourselves free and conscious, but we are not. If you remember lesson 12 of the course, in which we studied the law of recurrence, we saw how, due to our unconsciousness, that law is processed in us from one existence to another. And we saw how this law keeps us repeating the same actions and living the same situations, meeting the same people, falling into the same recurrences from one existence to another. Until we begin to work on ourselves, to observe ourselves, and to eliminate the psychological actors, or defects that keep us making those mistakes over and over again, so that we can draw wisdom from those experiences. Here we are going to see how that same law is processed in us in our daily lives from moment to moment. We live unconsciously repeating the same events, and reacting to them in the same way day by day. We live repeating from one day to the next, the same words and the same thoughts, since we constantly carry the same mental chatter and the same psychological songs. Likewise, we feel the same desires, we repeat the same actions, and we fall into the same inner states under the same circumstances. If we observe our daily lives, we will discover that mechanicalness. We will discover the psychological defects that manifest in us from the moment we get up in the morning, turning us into repetitive machines. The same unwillingness to do the things we need to do. The same arguments with your partner, or with your children. The same criticism at work, the same fear of the boss, the same antipathy towards such a person. We can see our mechanicalness even when we go to the bathroom. We can observe at that moment how a defect inside us already makes us mechanically pick up the cell phone to use the bathroom while watching social networks or watching videos. And we can see how every time we feel we need to go to the bathroom, the same programming that makes us take our cell phone and carry it with us is activated. And what can we say about the daily programming of lust, of masturbation for example, which at a certain time of the day is activated and leads us to search for pornography, or to remember sexual scenes so that we give in and seek to get the sexual energy out of our body. To discover this constant mechanicalness in which we live, self-observation is essential. If we don't observe ourselves, we will not be able to realize this incessant daily repetition, because this boring and mechanistic way in which we lead our lives has become normal to us. They are patterns of behavior that we have learned or that we have created, and as long as we don't bring the light of self-observation into our interior, we will not be able to discover that mechanicalness into which we have fallen. The 5 senses of external perception that we have only allow us to perceive external things. However, the only sense that will help us to self-discover and awaken our consciousness is that third eye, which is the sense of self-observation. Only by directing our attention to our inner world can we discover our mechanical reactions and reflect. Why do I always do the same thing? Why do I always have to react impulsively? Why do I always have to fall into the same vices, or the same bad habits? If we are self-observing in any situation, we can discover when this or that psychological defect wants to manifest in us and lead us to react mechanically, and then we can consciously deny ourselves to react like that. If we are in self-observation, we are putting our conscious part into activity. Self-observation allows us to remain in the present moment, in the here and now, which is the only time and place in which our consciousness can manifest. Thus, we can divide ourselves between observer and observed. Consciousness observes our internal psychological states, and can observe when any psychological defect wants to lead us to react mechanically to any situation. So, by discovering the defect, we can deny ourselves to it, we can eliminate it, and by eliminating it, we break that mechanicalness. Let's say we find ourselves in a situation where someone, for example, offends us, or treats us rudely. If we are in self-observation, we can discover how we are mechanically going to react with fury, violence, or fear, as we have always done whenever we have been in this situation. And if we can observe it, we have the wonderful opportunity to transform ourselves. If we continue our entire existence with the same mechanistic way of thinking, with the same concepts, the same closed beliefs, always doing the same things over and over again, we will never be able to experience any change. As that famous phrase attributed to Albert Einstein says, "If you want different results, don't do the same thing," or insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting different results. So, we must begin by reflecting and recognizing that we are not in self-control, that we have no control over our thoughts, but rather we have been acting mechanically, reacting to life according to our ego's programming. We must observe and accept that until now we have been nothing more than simple puppets that dance to the rhythm that others play. That we always react with anger or fear in the face of violent situations, with impatience in the face of situations that involve waiting, with laziness in the face of obligations, with lies in the face of having made a mistake and being discovered, with anxiety in the face of expectation, etc. And we must begin to yearn to get out of that mechanicalness, and encourage ourselves to do conscious work on ourselves in our daily lives in order to stop being machines. How to stop being machines. The principle is self-observation. If we don't observe ourselves, then we will not be able to discover who is driving our machine at any given moment. Then we will continue to behave the same way every day, and any possibility of change will be eliminated. But if instead, we observe ourselves, then we can discover the defects that are leading us to want to react in this or that way, and we can immediately eliminate them with the request to our particular Divine Mother, "My Mother, eliminate this defect from me." By following this procedure, we can begin to humanize ourselves, to stop being machines. Since only by refusing to do what the defect wants us to do, and allowing our own consciousness to manifest freely and spontaneously, is how we can stop being machines. Each of us has within a conscious part that is love, wisdom, and power. And only by breaking with our mechanicalness, only by refusing to act under the conditioning of our ego, can it begin to manifest and develop in us. There are two very simple exercises that we can begin to put into practice to break with our mechanicalness. The first consists of doing every night a retrospection of the day. And in this retrospection, we are going to observe all the mechanical reactions that we have had during the day. We will take a moment to sit back, relax, and review our day, from the moment we sit down to do this practice, to the moment we wake up in the morning. We are going to observe in detail everything we did, to discover each of the psychological defects that manifested themselves in us and seek to realize how these are the same defects that manifest themselves recurrently every day, leading us to act, think, and feel, always in the same way. In this retrospection, we are going to observe each of the events we experienced during the day, the actions we took, the words we said, the thoughts we had, and each of our desires. So, for example, by doing this practice, we could observe that every night before going to sleep we stay awake watching videos, and that this is a bad habit that has led us to not rest enough, and that has prevented us, for example, from achieving the conscious astral projection. There we go, discovering the many details that always manifest themselves in our emotion, mind, body, and sex, that always lead us to always do that. And we go asking for the elimination of those conditionings. We could observe that when having dinner with the family, there are the same old conversations, the same old arguments, whether it be worrying about the bills, or displeasure over something the child does, etc. And there you can observe all the mechanical reactions that you have, as well as all the defects that usually manifest themselves in you in that situation. And so, you can meditate on each situation experienced during the day, and the different defects that participated. With this practice we have the great opportunity, not only to know our own mechanicalness, but also to decide to break with it. We ask for the elimination of every psychological defect we discover, and we make the firm determination never to feed it again, to not react mechanically according to its conditioning. The next day, as we have already regained a lot of consciousness with this exercise, we will be more alert. And we will be able to discover more and more details of our defects that are constantly moving us to feel, think, and act in this or that way. Then, right there, in the present moment, faced with the circumstance, we ask the Divine Mother to eliminate the defects that we are now observing, and we don't do what the defect wants. That's the key. The idea is that every night we do this exercise, and thus we will see how each day will be a process of self-discovery and liberation of our consciousness. We are also going to verify how during the day we are going to be more alert, and in retrospection, we are going to verify how we will have more spaces during the day in which we remain in self-remembering. The second exercise is to focus on radically transforming a moment of our day. Thus, if when doing our daily retrospections, we realize that there is a very strong situation that is difficult for us to transform, for example, the constant fights with our partner before going to sleep, any bad habit you have, or the recurring act of expelling sexual energy every time you have sex with your partner, etc. We are going to dedicate a reflective meditation to that situation. We saw the reflective meditation in Lesson 22. If anyone has not seen it, you can look for it in the video section of the page, And there you can see the step-by-step of reflective meditation. And in meditation we are going to see that situation in detail, we are going to observe all the defects that are activated in that situation on an emotional, mental, motor, instinctive, and sexual level. And we are going to judge each of those defects we are understanding, and we will be eliminating them to transform that situation, that bad habit, or that vice. The goal is for us to reach that time of day and be able to maintain total concentration and self-observation without identifying ourselves with those defects, without reacting mechanically. We are going to dedicate the reflective meditations that are necessary until we reach the complete understanding and transformation of that circumstance. You will discover that a single moment in which you are conscious enough to stop being a machine, if done voluntarily, usually radically changes many unpleasant circumstances. This is how we will be able to transform situations that have plagued us for years, and we will be able to fix the bad relationships we have with others, since when we begin to break with our mechanicalness, consciousness can begin to manifest in us. And only consciousness can take us to experience true peace, happiness, and true love. And to finish this topic, I want to talk to you about two defects that represent a very big obstacle when we want to stop being machines. And I think it is important to mention them, so that we take them into account and work on them. The first one is laziness. Laziness doesn't let us make changes. And if we really want to get out of the mechanistic state in which we find ourselves, we will have to overcome our laziness, since this will always generate in us a lack of courage to do the work of self-observation and the work of retrospection. Laziness will always present us with something more entertaining to do. It will lead us to distract ourselves and hypnotize ourselves with anything, so that we do not wake up. Laziness always leads us to postpone inner work, to fill ourselves with excuses and justifications. And all this, so that we never awaken our consciousness, and therefore, that we continue to be puppets of our ego, so that it continues to feed on our energy. The second defect that prevents us from breaking with mechanicalness is mythomania. Mythomania is that defect that always leads us to believe our own lies, and to justify all our defects as valid. So, it will not allow us to judge ourselves and change. It leads us to believe that we don't need to change, that as we are fine. For example, we have the habit of smoking, and that is a programming that is activated recurrently at different times of the day. We start to feel anxious, we feel the need to smoke after having coffee, the need to take a break at work to go out and smoke, etc. But instead of observing and judging that defect, the mythomaniac self leads us to justify ourselves, telling us, "That's not so bad anyway," or "I only smoke one once in a while." And so, we never work on that defect, and we don't get out of the slavery in which it has us. Or it turns out that we are slaves to the cell phone, that we spend all day mechanically checking notifications, looking at what others post, etc. And if we leave our house and leave our cell phone, we feel a terrible anxiety. But the mythomaniac self in our mind will immediately look for a justification, so that we continue acting in the same way. And, therefore, if we do not identify and work on these two defects, laziness and mythomania, then we will never succeed with these exercises, and we will be condemned our entire existence to being mechanical creatures. The invitation is for us to decide to begin to observe ourselves and break with our mechanical nature, so that we can develop our conscious part, and so that we can truly achieve happiness. Well, this has been today's topic. We hope you liked it. As always, we invite you to the next conference, Radical Change. A very important topic that will allow us to understand the importance of becoming aware of our inner multiplicity, to achieve a true radical change in ourselves. Don't miss it. Until next time.